The square sitting across the desk from Sam Hill was nervous. Johnny Law had been putting the squeeze on him ever since his lady friend had gone and done the Dutch act, taking a tumble off of 7 pillars and cracking her sweet melon on the rocks below. Hill struck a match and put it to his gasper, taking a long, slow drag and blowing it right into the square's mug. When the Nance coughed, Hill leaned in close, tilting the desk lamp so as to illuminate the bird's puss, putting a little more heat on it. Sweat poured over his face like Niagara. "The story don't sing, Mr. Lynch," Hill said. "Not even a little." "I'm a simple man, Mr. Hill," Lynch said. His voice was soft. This was a man that couldn't pick his backbone out of a line of kneecaps. "Helen was everything. I never would have done her harm." "Maybe not," Hill said. He stood up and moved to the corner of the desk, sitting there so that he hovered over Lynch like a hungry vulture. "Maybe so. I'm not the one to say. I do know that Helen Reagan was a looker with gams for days. Not exactly the sort of skirt that you'd imagine saddled up to you. No offense." "None taken," Lynch replied. His eyes refused to meet Hill's. "I make no pretense that I was anything other than lucky in acquiring Helen's affections, but she had an eye for my line of work, partial to the print industry, you see, and a love of type." "Right," Hill scoffed. "Word on the street made her for a wannabe newshound, but wasn't quite able to make it to the bigs. Then she shows up here in our little nesting pot, and your little rag is the only game in town." "Sir," Lynch bit, "you make it sound as if her relations with me were merely to curry favor with the paper I produced. I assure you, her articles were accepted for her merit, not for the attention she showed me." "Right." Hill rose and crossed the floor. He crooked the blind and looked outside where Teddy Maynard was pacing back and forth. "And how about your printer's devil?" Hill asked. "Teddy? What does he have to do with this?" Lynch looked over his shoulder, wondering where Hill was going with this. "Did you know Teddy's grandmama was a conjure woman? She used to peddle charms and potions on Sinclair Street in a little shack where St. Bernard's parking lot is now. You remember?" "Conjure woman?" Lynch coughed. You're talking about Miss Buell? Colored? Why, Teddy's not what? Colored? Well, he passes, I suppose. His mother's half. He favors his father, though. But the point is, he knew his grandmama a spell before she passed, and all her belongings ended up in the Maynard attic." "What are you driving at?" Lynch stood. "When I was snooping around your house, Mr. Lynch, what do you think I found buried in your backyard?" I wouldn't know." "It was a ball jar." Hill turned away from the door and stared at Lynch. "Nothing special, I suppose. Full of honey, though, and a strand of lace tied around some hair trimmings. That's what we call a spot of voodoo, Mr. Lynch. A love spell. Got me curious, so I went over to Miss Reagan's place. A little apartment she rents behind Mrs. Lowe's. What do you think I found there, Mr. Lynch, buried in her side yard, not 4 feet from her front door?" "Hey, he said she'd..." "What? Love you forever?" Hill drove his finger hard into the man's chest, and he fell back into the chair. "That honey jar with your hair in it, was that supposed to seal the deal? What happened? Spell wear off?" The boy wanted raised up," Lynch broke. "He wanted to be a pressman, but he wasn't ready. So he lifted the juju from the honey pot, and suddenly Helen Reagan wasn't sweet on you anymore, right, Mr. Lynch?" Oh, God," Lynch blubbered. "God's got nothing to do with this." Hill crossed the room and picked up the blower. Within minutes, Johnny Law was knocking on his door, and Fenton Lynch had a new set of bracelets. As for the printer's devil, well, that was another matter.